Thank you for that poem. Jennifer, who's a regular here, will be reading from her new collection as soon as it's published, which we expect will be by the fall, and so she'll feature in probably in October. Just so you all know, I think many of you do, we're here for the next 2 months in May and June, and then we're off for July and August, and then back here in September. We have A.M. Juster coming up, Rick Hillis, Eileen Gassell, Rebecca Aronson, and many others already scheduled. So we'll look forward to seeing you next month on Mother's Day, and in June as well before we go on break. So we're delighted to be hosting a featured reading by Christian Teresi. He is the author of What Monsters You Make of Them by Hen Press. His poems, essays, and translations have appeared in many journals, including AGNI, the American Poetry Review, Blackbird, the Kenyon Review, Literary Hub, and Narrative. He lives in Washington, D.C., where he works on international education and public diplomacy initiatives. If he weren't reading poems, we could probably grill him about the current state of his work life, which must be very rich indeed. But all of that aside, we actually can very much look forward to hearing him read his poems now.
Thank you, David. Sort of wild for me to be introduced by David Yezzi. I grew up in Albany, New York, and David Yezzi and Daisy Freed are the two most famous poets from Albany, New York. So sort of followed their career with interest. Thank you also to Teresi and Clare and Steph. You have a great community here. I'm really delighted to be here. And to Emma Snyder and her staff at the Ivy Bookshop. Great to be here. However chaotic you think things are in DC, they are more chaotic than that. And so, like a lot of you, I've been thinking very earnestly of late how we can write accurately about the state of geopolitical affairs, and how to write accurately and meaningfully about things like rule of law and due process, which seem to be eroding very rapidly. And I realized today was the great poet Seamus Heaney's birthday. He would have been 86 today. And Heaney grew up in Northern Ireland. Thinking about how to write accurately and meaningfully about the state of the world, I remember this Seamus Heaney poem from his book, The Hall Lantern, which was written in 1987 at the height of the Troubles. And I'd like to start by reading this. From the frontier of writing, Seamus Heaney. The tightness and the stillness round that space, when the car stops in the road, the troops inspect its make and number, and as one bends his face towards your window, you catch sight of more on a hill beyond, eyeing with intent down cradled guns that hold you under cover, and everything is pure interrogation, until a rifle motions and you move with guarded, unconcerned acceleration, a little emptier, a little spent, as always by that quiver in the self, subjugated, yes, and obedient. So you drive on to the frontier of writing, where it happens again. The gun on tripods, the sergeant with his staff on off mic repeating data about you, waiting for the squawk of clearance, the marksman training down out of the sun upon you like a hawk, and suddenly you're through, arranged yet freed, as if you passed from behind a waterfall on the black current of a tarmac road, past armor-plated vehicles, out between the posted soldiers, flowing and receding like tree shadows into the polished windscreen. Thanks. You can definitely clap for James Heaney. If you don't like my poems, at least you know Heaney. I wrote this book over a very long period of time, and for a long time I thought it was never going to be published. And then it was suddenly going to be published, and I had to think about talking about it in front of audiences. And I didn't really think about that a lot at all when I was writing it. And so to sort of satisfy those concerns, I created this tree chart, which will guide me through this reading so I don't have to think about what I'm going to read. The first poem I'm going to read here is about one of Francisco Goya's black paintings. And if you don't know about the black paintings, they hang in the Prado in Madrid. And Goya was the court painter and then retired to the countryside and became a sort of recluse, very disillusioned with his experience with politics and the state. And when they entered his house after he had died, they had found throughout the building, he had painting these really intricate scenes all over the walls. The murals were untitled, and he likely never intended them to be shown publicly, but they're now some of his most famous paintings, Saturn Eating His Children and The Witch's Hour. This is a poem about his painting The Dog. An alternate version of Goya's The Dog. We look at what could be your dog drowning. We came through room after room where there was only the divine as best guessed. Jesus was never the same. From one canvas to the next, you believe one day your dog will die. But Goya's dog is a long time in the luxury of undying, the perpetual mid-paddle, the forever abiding no motion, tethered to our vexed moment. We tell ourselves we know pretty, but mostly we're right where someone said stay with Goya's dog. All the handsome colors are conjured without bone or fur or pain. This is the liminal tour of a limited world you choose to place your pathos. We look at the painting and see your dog barking louder than necessary, or his begging devotion, though there is none of those things. We see a lunatic tide, though there is none. We look and we look again, just as some look at those other paintings and see an idea of heaven, even though they look to me like drowning. Here the dog is drowning in the dark edges of the day. Here he is drowning in love. And here, to be fair, he is drowning in someone's mongrel gaze. Here drowning come darkness, lay down water, dear clever Spaniard, sit and stay. Swimmers floating in the joy of anything, even sorrow. Thank you. There's a series of poems in this book that take two sort of disparate historical figures and put them into conversation with each other. This is one of those poems. Mike Tyson explains middle age to John Keats. Sometimes I think I said everything I had to say at 26. At the reform school at 15, I could take any adult one-on-one, When it took several of them to take me to solitary, they said that was what needed to happen for forgiveness. They wanted me to confess, but I never knew for what. A curse is also sacred, right, John? Stable keepers' kids know broken, then healed, but healed with limits to how much anything can be set right. You Keats boys had the minds of feral dreams, never bullied into errands for hoodlums. I've stepped off planes in Istanbul, in Brussels, in Tokyo, where everyone heard of me. They gave me a parade in Moscow. I was still the kid that robbed drug dealers, since it was better when cops had me palms reaching across the hood of their car to let them take the 1,500 in my pocket, then take me away. Your brothers didn't care about poetry, but if you needed to fight, they needed to fight. And that leeway is honest and close-fisted. Your brothers were the song the enemies sing when they warn the children of the beasts that eat other beasts. You were a monster amazed at the moonlight. I wish I knew what it was like to trust. These men say things which make one start without making one feel. Men still say dumb things about you, John. They get your dispatches all wrong, try so hard to find attention through slick abstraction. What was there in North London or Brownsville, Brooklyn, except not to consider an opponent's size and strength, to know how to get inside and open like a son of a bitch? Most men take a few punches to win, but not you and me, John. We went to the body, to the head, and previously unseen combinations. Still, we move beyond weakness, endure lessons of failure, forgive opponents. Each blow from our hands was pity, surviving was survival. How hard men work for imperfection. Marie Howe once told me that when she published In the Kingdom of Ordinary Time, right before it was set to go to press, she got frantic and cut like 15 pages out of the book, and I always thought that was an incredible thing. And when I was getting ready to publish this book, I was like, I need to cut a bunch of poems to make it good. And I cut a bunch of poems, and I had a friend read it, and then I told him I was going to cut some poems, and he really convinced me not to cut this poem. This is the one poem that was going to be cut. No, it wasn't. But this is a poem about the Naga people who live in Southeast Asia. The Naga are an ethnic group of numerous tribes that reside in Northeast India and Northwest Myanmar. They speak more than 20 distinct Tibeto-Burman languages and share similar cultures and traditions. Headhunting was a ritual meant to symbolize courage and steal the power of enemies. It was a recorded practice among the Naga until 1969. Nagaland in India was an independent state before British colonial rule. Metamorphosis. The Naga were headhunters who wrote butterfly on the parched relief of temples and in manuscripts born by monastics that knew anything meaningful is without speaking. They wrote butterfly to tell how to find their ancestors. When they stopped cutting the heads off of missionaries, they started to care about clothes. Some think Naga are not Naga if they cannot hunt heads. Some Naga still believe in were-tigers who travel to the spirit world to speak with the dead, which is to say they speak with butterflies. The Naga wrote beautifully. The Naga wrote butterfly, and I still know what they mean. After enough time, no one remembers who anyone was. Butterflies are the reincarnated dead warriors to some, or foretell imminent evil to others. Naga, no butterflies, conjoined to the air, as silence is the most meaningful prayer. No one remembers these ancient ways, but they show something of what they were in those words. In the beginning, there was the way wings sigh and ease down without kneeling. There was nectar in the migration from one belief to another. The other sort of series of poems in this book is during COVID, I took a bunch of trips to different national parks, and there's poems about what I was reading while I was on those trips. This is reading Carlos Drummond de Andrade in Everglades National Park. There's an epigraph here. From the Ramsar Convention, which took place in Iran in 1972. Up to 87% of the global wetland resource has been lost since 1700. We lose wetlands 3 times faster than natural forest. On the edge of the park, tourists pay to hold the hatchlings of the caged 10-foot attraction whose half burrow leaves little room to turn around in the mud pack, the way she did waiting for workers on break to amuse themselves with a bit of peril, tossing scraps into the canal to gawk at her ravenous contortions. Alligators do not know the difference between food they catch in the wild, where they may wait submerged for 45 minutes, and food fed to them by workers behind a meatpacking plant. So the Wildlife Commission labels hand-fed alligators a nuisance. But alligators must be alligators before they can be something else. Before they are the thrill that costs $25 per tourist, or wait at the edge of orchards growing South Asian mangoes, where wetlands were drained and cypress windbreaks culled to plot soil. This is plentiful not for the parade of white pelicans gliding, not for the mangrove where a night heron in discreet silence looks reborn from the afterlife, while overhead swifts share the sound of 6-foot-tall sawgrass rustling in imperceptibly moving water, and the commission orders nuisance alligators must be caged or killed simply because they never know the difference between wading birds and a toddler who has wobbled too close to the edge. I am preparing a song to wake the men and lullaby the children, Andrade says in a poem put on the 50 Cruzado Novo banknote, a small bill to stave off inflation and remind us of a Canção Amiga friendly song to bless the money required to pay Brazilian debts. Andrade says that the song never arrives, and for preparation we pay with words used to describe the tide that now has legal definitions. With money made from cotton that grew wild in prehistoric times, was finished into nets and traded with coastal villages for fish. Money, from the Roman title of the goddess Juno, the protector of the state, and a word that has the same ancestor as monitor, which is meant to caution you into remembering the expense to lawfully permit parcels of eternity and forever and Everglade. If you're familiar with Jericho Brown's really great book, The Tradition. He invented a form in that called the duplex, which is kind of a riff on the sonnet. I was sort of fascinated with what he had done. It's a really good book if you don't know it. But I was inspired by that and invented this form I call the quadruplex, which is sort of a little bit of an evolution of what Jericho brilliantly did. This is based on a quote from the astronomer Carl Sagan. Let us temper our criticism with kindness. None of us come fully equipped. Terms of surrender. Let us temper our criticism with words bridled by illiterate poets. Words bridled by illiterate poets never pray over altars of the self. Never pray over altars of the self where no congregants dwell or echo back. Where no congregants dwell or echo back. Recall Century who allowed safe passage. Recall Century who allowed safe passage across irrigated fields cleared of stone. Across irrigated field cleared of stone, pests may nibble leaves or cause sallow rot, may leave half-eaten fruit that wilts then rots, may half be plenty for them to leave with. Kindness, none of us comes fully equipped. Forgive me for all my half-eaten fruit. Forgive me for all my half-eaten fruit. They were not the milestone I believed, nor a snug demon slaughtered by belief. Once some claimed birds migrated to the moon. A great refuge was alleged on the moon. Others said birds slumbered in riverbeds. They wintered submerged in warm riverbeds. Roosting to appear from the far-fetched. Roosting to return from the far afield, birds navigate by what seems phantom skills. Still, the common falsehoods perch skillfully, because none of us comes fully equipped. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christian. What a pleasure to hear your poems in person. Just beautiful, and powerful, and moving. Thank you also for making the trip on your weekend to come to Baltimore to read for us. We really appreciate it. So this is usually the end of the reading, but we have one more open mic who couldn't read earlier but can read now. So if you stick around, we have a reading of a poem from Sonia Leakin?
Yes.
Sonia Leakin.
Hi, my name is Sonia, and I'll be reading a poem titled Wegmans. I tried to go get burgers at the Wegmans Burger Bar, like we used to. They told me they don't have it. Not anymore. Not since the pandemic. Not since you died. And then, time stopped. For a brief moment, everything around me was disfigured, disjointed, discombobulated. Instantaneously, I was thrust through time. Vignettes of my life circling around me like a carousel. 5 years had really passed. The brain has its ridges and wrinkles because there's no room for it to keep growing. It folds in on itself. I think this to myself as my body too now is folding in on itself, crushed by the weight of 5 years of relentless grief in the middle of Wegmans. It takes 7 years for cells to regenerate. I have 2 more. I whisper this to the cells on my cheeks so they don't let that last lingering kiss precipitously fade. I clutch with a white-knuckle grip the echo of your laugh, but sound waves are escaping through my fingers, my memories are unraveling. I can't remember the dotting of your freckles anymore, because now it's been 5 whole years since Wegmans stopped selling our burgers and you had died.
Thank you, Sonia. Thanks again to all the poets who read today, to our features, for all the open micers. Thanks to everyone for coming out today and listening. This was a fantastic day. Just a reminder, we'll be back here on Mother's Day for another Hot L. Please pick up copies of the poets' books. I'm sure they'll be happy to sign them for you. And after that, if anybody would like a free copy of Smartish Pace, I'm going to leave a stack up here. All right.